the common thread for a lot of teams is that the coaches don't know what to do with the goaltenders, and in some cases think they know what they should do, and that does cause some other problems with the goalie if they're misinformed about don't go down or play stand up, or they sometimes give incorrect advice for problems that they see that makes the problem actually worse. I think coaches need to understand that goaltenders need to have some dedicated time in practice. Doesn't have to be a lot. Could be 5 minutes of practice where they're doing movement drills, recovery drills, working on rebound control. And I think the best thing a coach could do is spend time designing some of the drills in practice besides just shooting at the goalies. Make the drills unpredictable and make them as close to game situations as possible where rebounds count and where the shot counts and where it's unpredictable. And I think if coaches can do that and treat each practice where there's a time for the goalie and a time for everybody else, and have a goalie coach come in. There's a lot of people around that understand the position. There's a lot of resources for goaltending coaches around. And I think that's the best thing a coach could do to help their goalies. The most common complaint I hear about the goaltenders that coaches have is that they go down too much, they don't challenge enough, and they don't control rebounds. The most common complaint I hear from coaches with goaltenders is the fact that their goaltender goes down too much. Actually, what the coaches are trying to get at is the goaltenders are going down at the wrong situation, back in the crease, too early, and they're not controlling rebounds. A goaltender, quite honestly, can't go down too much. They just can go down improperly. And the best thing a goaltender can do is try to be more selective, read the puck, and on low shots go down, and on high shots stand up. I think that's the million-dollar question, and I think that applies to forwards, defensemen, or any sport. How can any young kid make it to the highest level of anything they're trying to do, whether it be school, violin, or anything like that? And the answer is you have to have a passion for it, and it has to be internally motivated. It can't come from your parents. It can't come from your friends. It has to come from you on a daily, consistent basis, getting one day better, having a dream, a goal, a passion, finding out what you need to do to get there, studying successful people, and just maintaining that passion and doing it on your own. That's the secret. I see, for the most part, goaltenders have problems controlling rebounds. They give people more opportunities than they need to have. They don't develop the hunger and the desire to prevent rebounds in practice. And so they condition themselves to boot out rebounds in practice and in games, and that's where I see a big problem with goalies. During tryouts, it's important for goaltenders to separate themselves from the other kids trying out. That can be done several ways. Number one, being the first on the ice and last off the ice. Another great tip, making sure that you're always skating harder than the guy that had the spot that you want to take. Third thing would be controlling rebounds and making sure whenever you're waiting to get into a net or waiting your turn, you're working on movement drills, recovery drills, anything so that the coaches that are watching the practice can look at you and see there's a hardworking kid, a kid we want to have on the team. An old-timer's myth pervades to this day that goaltenders should use dull skates. And nowadays in hockey, the game is fast. It's an east-to-west game where passes are going side to side. Goaltenders have to be able to move sideways quickly, and that's impossible to do with dull skates. You need to have sharp skates, you need to have good edges, and with sharp skates you can play the best goal that you can. A lot of parents, coaches are wondering whether kids will be able to play at higher levels or not, or even the next level up. And the simple answer is, if a kid, for instance, as a goaltender, stopping 90 to 92% of shots at the level they're at, they probably can play at a higher caliber. Kids by nature will get a lot out of hockey if they just approach it with an attitude of going out there to have fun, hang out with their buddies, and learn lessons that they learn from hockey, how to get along with others, how to follow direction, how to follow authority, and just simply to have fun would be the best way to get the most out of hockey. I think goaltenders, like forwards, should take a break from hockey. I think it's healthy for kids because they are kids first, that they play other sports, they get with a different set of friends, and they experience life in a different situation. So playing year-round certainly will help them as an athlete. It's not a requisite for them to go on in hockey, and I think at some level playing a different sport or getting away from hockey for a while increases their hunger and their passion for the sport and may ultimately be more beneficial for their career. There's a lot of resources from Canadian hockey, from American hockey. The associations have CD-ROMs, they have videos, books. There's a ton of materials available to help people if they want to learn and understand the position. And, you know, people think goaltenders are flakes, and a lot of times that's the way the coaches approach it, and they want to be purposefully ignorant of the position because it's easier to not know than it is to do the work to know and then to spend time working with their goaltenders, and I see that commonly. All of the practices that we had in college, he would spend time working on our movements, understanding why are we doing this, where should we be, why do we have this hole here, why don't we stand here. And he brought the game really to a higher level cognitively where you had to understand the game, why are you doing this and why shouldn't you do this. Instead of just playing on sheer emotion and sheer talent, you became more of a thinker, more of an understander, and spent more time studying video and understanding the game itself, and that was the greatest asset that he gave me. As far as goaltenders go, I loved an old-time goalie for the Maple Leafs named Mike Palmateer, left-handed goalie. He was just all over the place. He would come flying out and check people at the blue line. He would be eating popcorn in between periods, scuba diving the day before he'd play against LA Kings. He was a character, and I just loved seeing him poke check, diving, and he was flamboyant, and the fans in Toronto loved him, and he was the guy that played in Hockey Night in Canada all the time when I was a kid. Well, goaltenders would normally get scouted if they're known around the area for being a top talent, the scuttlebutt around the arenas and stuff. This kid's going to be going somewhere. Scouts sort of hear that, and that sort of attracts them. Scouts typically come to watch kids when they get to be 13, 14, and 15, and before that, there's not really a lot of scouting that goes on. Agents play a role for people that are established when they're dealing with management in the NHL level. They help negotiate higher contracts and better benefits and other things in the contracts. But to have a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid get an agent to hope that it helps them get onto a junior A team or whatever, I think really is more of a status thing to say you have an agent. Agents really don't help you in those situations and may in fact hurt your chances of moving up. The most important scout that a player will meet will always be their current head coach. And the reason for that is scouts typically, when they come to an arena to look at players, whether it's a college scout or an OHL scout, junior scout, will talk to the coach before the game and inquire what certain players are like on your team. Now, if your coach knows that you're a hard worker, knows that you show up every day and you approach it on a professional basis, your coach is going to put good feedback into the scout's mind. And if your coach doesn't think you're that type of a player, you're going to have a problem. So the most important scout you're going to see will be your current head coach. I played minor hockey like most kids, played house league hockey, then travel hockey, played junior B in my hometown, got a scholarship. From the scholarship, I was drafted to the NHL to Vancouver in the second round, and then played in the East Coast League, the International Hockey League, and all the way up to the NHL. So I basically hit every step of the ladder on the way. My career was ended relatively early after I played in the NHL on a check from behind, and I needed my education immediately to have another career to transition into. And because I had that career planned in place, I had the education lined up, it was something that allowed me to make that transition a lot easier. Well, goaltenders, when they're stopping pucks, they have to choose between blocking saves or reaction saves. And every save can be boiled down to one of those two types. A shot that's released from a distance where you have a chance to react, to track it, to come in, is called a reaction save. You can put a piece of your body in front of the puck. Now, the game, as it gets faster, you get to higher levels, you're required to make more blocking saves. Half-pad saves, paddle down, two-pad slide with good closure and no holes. And a blocking save would be called for perhaps on a backdoor pass where a guy one-times it. Now, a reaction save, you track it, you catch it, you move something, you follow it. A blocking save, you just put a wall up and try to fill up space and make the puck hit you and block. Typically, it's tough to know whether a goaltender is getting better in practice, they're working hard enough, or not. So a good way to develop an accurate reading on that is to do a save percentage, where you calculate how many shots a goalie sees in practice, how many goals he gives up, and then track the save percentage. Over time, you can see whether that's improving or whether it's getting worse or it's staying the same. I got started coaching goaltenders when I was probably 17 years old, working for Shamrock Hockey School, and worked with a guy named Jeff Reese who was coaching goalies, and got a chance to see that the stuff that you know as a goaltender could really help young kids develop and become better goaltenders. I've had a lot of kids that have come through the camp in the last decade that have had some good results with their career, whether it be playing junior A, college hockey, or perhaps even higher. And I had a couple of students that I coached when I was with the Detroit Vipers. There was Johan Hedberg, who plays for the Pittsburgh Penguins, Yanni Herme, who plays with the Ottawa Senators, and Michael Layton, Chicago Blackhawks, to name a few. But there's been probably 10 to 15 that have made significant career moves as goaltenders. I think a good goalie coach is part psychiatrist, first of all, at the higher levels definitely, where you're dealing with the emotional roller coaster of being a goalie. Secondly, the technical aspect of it, being able to teach people what they're doing right and what they need to fix, and simplify it so they can understand how to correct it in their game. And I think the combination of the technical aspect, the people skills, and being a psychiatrist really to help them understand that you've been there, you've been through what they're going through, and that, I would say, would be the combination of what would make a good goalie coach. Well, actually, the genesis for that idea came reading a Sports Illustrated article. A baseball player in the major leagues, his father had used a pitching machine in a shed and had gradually turned down the lights and made it tougher for him to see the baseball. And trying to extrapolate that into the goaltending equation, I figured if we could play with the difference in the white puck, mini puck, clear puck, the object from the background to make it more difficult visually in practice, it would make the goalie's job in the game much easier. And so those were just different varieties of things that I experimented with, and they all have different benefits. The mini pucks will find holes in your stance. The white pucks really blend in well with the ice, and the clear pucks are even a step beyond that, where they literally become invisible for small periods of time and really force you to focus on the puck. I think at some level there's a level of reaction time that you're going to have that you're born with. And I think this will allow you to get closer to the ideal that your body possesses, reaction time. But it's more important for visual acuity, being able to pick an object out of its surroundings. And hockey is very visually distracting. There's a lot of movement around the net, people in front of you, sticks flying, and people there. And so what this really allows you to do is to find the puck in the environment more so than actually improving your reflexes. But I think the combination of those two do play a part in this type of training. Goaltending in the game environment is completely unpredictable, and in practices, a lot of cases, it's too predictable. in the typical practice, the goalies know where the puck's coming, what the drill is, and what's expected of them. In the game, it's the opposite of that. And so when you're training a goaltender, when they're learning a skill, when they're learning a game situation, you have to start with the predictability built in so they can master the skill. Once they've developed mastery of a skill or a situation, then the drills need to step up and start incorporating the unpredictability of games, whether it's a screen board that helps create a screen, whether it's a white puck that's harder to see because of people's legs and peekaboo screen boards. So the plan is to make the skill learning and the game situation learning predictable to begin with, and then if you can continue that on and make it more unpredictable, it's going to make the goalie's job in the game much easier. It was actually surreal. It was like a dream at some level when you step out on the ice for your first game. The logos on the jerseys seem bigger than real life. They seem heavier. The guys look more like who they are in real life than they do on TV, which is weird to say, but you look at them and you go, oh, that's who that is. And the game itself wasn't faster than you would think it is. And then you realize, yes, I can play here and I can follow it and I belong here. And it was almost surreal. It was like there was a Hollywood production where people put the names on the jerseys and somebody was playing a joke, and I was eternally waiting for somebody to say, cut. Okay, back down you go to the minors. I thought it was that type of a thing. It was surreal. I think as a goaltender, Mitch Korner, who coaches the Nashville Predators now, their goaltenders, was the biggest influence on my career. I went to scholarship at Miami of Ohio, where he was my goalie coach consistently, day in, day out. He actually scouted me to give me the scholarship, and he took me from what I say would be a borderline, uncontrolled junior goalie to a more refined professional goalie. And I was prepared when I left college to play pro, and I think it was because of him, clearly, off ice and on ice, and the whole goaltending package. He turned me into an NHL goalie. You really have to enjoy what you're doing if you're going to take it to the higher levels. And in my example, I found I love the game for the fun of it all the way up through minor hockey. Once I got to play junior hockey, and in college I realized it was a job. And although at times it was fun, frankly, I found it to be a job, and it was challenging. And I had my passion to pull me through the parts where it wasn't fun. And that's quite frankly what you're going to see if you're going to play at the higher levels. You're going to have to understand it won't always be fun. But the more you can keep it fun and not really get too wound up in it, the more successful you're going to be. Age and experience may not go hand in hand because, for instance, a lot of adult goalies don't have the experience. Although they're older, they haven't played the game for a long time. So I think the equation, you really have to go back to the experience level. So a goaltender, whether old or young, that doesn't have a lot of experience in the position, in the early stages of their learning, the first 2 or 3 years, need to work on the fundamental elements of stance, position, and general save selections. How to stop the puck, how to stand, and where to stand. As they get to be more advanced and you become more interested in the technical aspect of the game and understanding situations, predicting what may happen in advance, and understanding the game from a strategy point of view, where you're understanding what's probably going to happen and how you should attack a certain situation. I've dealt with them for over a decade, and I had goaltending parents as dads and moms, and it was a great example that I had. My mom and dad never coached me. They never car coached me. They never went over my performances in the car after the game, win, lose, or draw. In fact, when I played my first game in the NHL, I called my father and he said, "How about that?" And that was the extent of it. Never got too high with it, never got too low with it. Just always showed up and watched. And I think the best example I could give is that they should almost be seen but not heard. Be visible so kids can see that you're there watching and support them. But as painful and as hard as it is, try not to say anything about the coaches or about how you played or didn't play. Just generically, good job, way to work. And that's the best. I think goaltenders that are great have 3 things that they do really well. They have the physical part of the game, which it would be obvious, the reflexes, the athleticism, the ability to play the game. That would be the first thing. The second thing would be the heart, which would be the motivation and the desire. And then the third thing would be the emotional capabilities, the ability to stay on an even keel and not let the roller coaster of goaltending, the ups and the downs, affect them. So if a great goaltender had those three things going for them, they're going to be very successful. The thing I look for in goaltenders, first of all, is they smile a lot and they're having fun when I'm working with them. And the reason I say that is because a lot of goaltenders aren't using the times where they're practicing or having games to have fun. They're taking it too seriously. And the kids that I see, that I've seen that have went on to play Major A in college hockey and in the NHL, are kids that are actually enjoying themselves when they're learning. And I see that as an important factor. If they're having fun, they're going to put more into it. They're going to really cultivate their passion. And I think that's something that I look for first of all. I don't care how fast they are, how tall, small, quick, slow, whatever. It's the fun aspect and their ability to listen. I would say that the goaltender's job is easier than it appears, in that if you're in the right spot at the right time, it doesn't matter how good the guy is, the odds will fall with you to stop it. And Patrick Roy is a perfect example. The winningest goaltender in history of the NHL got that way because he was in the right spot at the right time early enough, way more often than he wasn't. And that's why he has the most wins in the NHL's history. In every practice, a goaltender should walk into the practice really focused on rebound control, positioning, and not cheating on the drills. And when I say cheating on the drills, I mean a lot of drills are designed to be predictable, and a goalie can know in advance where the puck's probably going to be coming from. The goaltender should move with all passes and treat the practice as unpredictable as a game so that in the game you don't get surprised. Three styles of goaltending are stand-up style, butterfly style, and flopping. And we all can think of examples of goaltenders that play each style successfully. Goaltending is a continuum of styles, from the stand-up at one end to a flopper at the other end, with butterfly right in the middle. And a goaltender should strive to play a hybrid of those styles, where you sort of stand up in certain situations, you may have to butterfly in certain situations, and at times you may need to flop. There's lots of goalie coaches around, lots of good hockey schools and programs and things that work with goaltenders. And the key to selecting somebody that's a good goalie coach is to look at their credentials, number one, see whether they've played at a high level, see whether they've coached at a high level, or see if they have an educational background in teaching children or teaching skills. Any one of those areas may not be a requisite. For instance, one of the best goalie coaches in the world is Mitch Korner, who's never played at a high level. However, the best goalie coaches will have a combination of credibility from their experience as a player, experience as a coach, or actually their educational background in learning how to teach people. If your goalie coach gives you different information that you may have learned from camps or whatever, you need to take the advice with respect, attempt to incorporate it into your game and try it in practice, see if what he says works, and understand that you're going to get a lot of advice from different people. Several things will help your game, several things may not apply to you, but be open to new instruction, see if it applies to you, try it, treat the coach with respect, and go back to what works for you. Every goaltender at some level goes through a slump. The difference is how long the slump lasts. The key to make the slump go away quicker is to make sure you address it early on. And the key is to stay focused on the present. A lot of times goalies get so wound up on what just happened or what may happen in the future, and the slump continues. They're afraid of the slump continuing. They had bad experiences against a certain team. Last game they played, they had problems. All of these ideas and focus are away from the present. And the key to get out of a slump is to work and focus on the present of what you're doing right now.
One more.